Finance.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Financial Independence Podcast, the podcast where I get inside the brains of some of the best and brightest in the personal finance space to find out how they achieved early financial independence. On today's show, I'm excited to introduce Joe and Allie. Joe is better known on the internet as Mr. Money Mustache forum moderator extraordinaire, Arebelspy, or Arebelspy as I first pronounced it, probably for the first year that I saw it written down without spaces. I had the chance to meet and hang out with both Joe and Allie at Camp Mustache the past 2 years, and I found their story so interesting and inspiring that I knew I had to get them on the show at some point. So really excited that they're here today. Both Joe and Allie are ex-public school teachers who were able to go from a $0 net worth in 2010 to financial independence last year. And they did so by building up a portfolio of rental properties that now provide enough cash flow to cover their expenses. After retiring last year, they now travel the world full-time with their new baby girl, Annabelle, who was actually born in Istanbul, Turkey, of all places. And as you'll soon hear, their retirement has been extremely exciting with lots of interesting things happening. So without further delay, Joe and Allie, thanks a lot for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
So where exactly are you guys?
So we're in Siem Reap, Cambodia right now.
Nice. So you are pretty much on the exact opposite end of the world from where I'm at. I'm sitting in Guanajuato, Mexico right now. So if this Skype call holds together, that would be a miracle. But you guys sound great. So you guys have been on the road for how long?
It's been a little over a year. We left. We early retired in June of 2015. And then we left Las Vegas where we were living in August. And so
we officially left the U.S. end of August 2015.
Wow. And you've been on the road the whole time, and you had a baby while you've been on the road. Is that right?
Yeah.
So where did Annabelle join the scene?
She was born in Istanbul, Turkey. So her passport says Turkey as her country of birth. That's
amazing. So yeah, we obviously have a lot to talk about, and I don't want to jump too far ahead. So we'll go back to the beginning, and then we'll definitely get back into all of that stuff because it's extremely interesting. So yeah, just for people that may not know you in the community, can you just tell a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah. So I go by the screen name Arebelspy, which a lot of people mispronounce as Arebelspy or different versions of that because it all runs together. But I'm mostly on the MMM forums when it comes to the early retirement community, but also comment on different blogs and stuff like that. And my wife is less active in those communities, but a huge partner in getting us to financial independence.
Yeah, and I know you guys very well from two Camp Mustaches in the Pacific Northwest. We've luckily hung out a lot, which has been great. And yeah, I always thought you were a Rebels. I'm trying to think of what I thought you were, because you commented on my blog way back in the day, which I thought was amazing. And you always had such good comments, and I was like, man, that Arebelspy guy is so good. And then I think it was like only probably a year after like chatting with you on my blog is that I realized I was a Arebelspy. So I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people.
We had been married for about 2 years before he said it out loud one day. And I was like, oh, I did not get that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you, Joe, you are a huge influence in the forums. You're a moderator with how many thousands of actual comments?
Tens of thousands. Yeah. I've always, for whatever reason, I really enjoy the interaction of internet forums. So even for the last decade or two, I've had thousands of posts across different forums for whatever kind of hobby I'm into at the moment. So at one time it was like pocket PCs, those old like handheld, like Palm Pilot type things. Yeah. And I had thousands of posts on those forums. And then at one point it was a motorcycle forum when Allie and I both had gotten motorcycles and all kinds of different various forums. But yeah, the MMM forums just, I really enjoy talking about financial independence and talking about finance in general, and the sort of people who tend to seek FI tend to be, I've found, more sort of engaging, interesting people like yourself, Brandon. So I enjoy that type of interaction.
Nice. Well, thanks. Yeah, no, it's amazing what you do and accomplish there, because like for some reason anytime I type something, I have to reread it like 5,000 times. So like one email will take me about like an hour to complete. And that's why writing posts takes me so long. So like to see the amount of intelligent stuff that you put out into the forum, it just amazes me every time I see it. But meeting you in person, I sort of got a glimpse into how that all works. Just chatting with you about how many books you read and how many podcasts you listen to and things, and joking that like I was annoying you by talking at 1x speed because I know you listen to everything at like 2x at least, 2x speed. So I'm sorry that these questions are going to be coming at you very slowly, but we'll work through it.
It's so interesting to hear your voice at 1x because I listen to all my podcasts double speed. So pro tip for your listeners who just want to get that content even quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So anyway, so let's get back to you guys and your story because it's a really incredible one. So if I've done my research right, you guys were pretty much at a $0 net worth back in 2010, and now you're completely financially independent and traveling the world, and you did it as public school teachers. So could you talk a little bit about the background, first, just schooling and stuff, and then getting to that $0 net worth, and then we'll obviously dive into how you hit FI in record time and in impressive fashion. So,
all right. So, we both we met at school, at college, and then we both got jobs as teachers in Las Vegas. And luckily, Las Vegas has a really low cost of living, but it also has a low teacher pay. So we were living in Vegas, and we didn't have any lifestyle inflation when we actually finally got jobs, which was really nice. So we were just living in a small apartment. We took as many extra jobs as we possibly could to start getting our wealth built up and pay off any school debts we had. So, we did summer schools, Saturday schools. I taught extra classes, and we did clubs and all sorts of extra things to try to bulk up that our pay amounts.
Yeah, and that's something that Ed Mills from Millionaire Educator, I had him on the show too, and then that was a common theme that he talked about as well. Picking up, not just doing the bare minimum for teaching, but actually picking up all those sort of extracurriculars and all the different things that teachers can actually volunteer for to do, and it seems like that makes a pretty big difference in the bottom line. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a huge chunk. I mean, when you're not getting paid that much, and then you add on summer school and a couple of different clubs, and you add an extra.
The baby is very excited to hear all this.
Yep, and when you have, I don't know what I was saying at this point, but yeah.
So yeah,
it makes a big difference percentage-wise because if you're making 35,000 and you teach summer school for 3,500, it's like, wow, there's a 10% boost in my salary.
Right. And if you're pocketing that and investing it, then yeah, that can definitely go a long way. So you guys graduated back in 2007, I think, and
yeah.
You started. So Joe, you started out of the gate with like 32K, and then Allie, you were doing sort of like substitute teaching, I think, for 20K. Is that right?
Right.
For 20, and then all the other stuff on top of that so all the other stuff is in addition to those base salaries. Is that?
Yeah.
Right. And you guys started with like 30K of student debt too, right? So it wasn't like you were just coming right out of the gate and just saving and investing right away.
Yeah, I've never looked at the exact numbers. I know I had a little over 20,000, and Allie had around 10 or 15,000 in student loans. So somewhere around 35,000 maybe. I never really paid attention because it was automated, the payment, and the interest rate was so low that I knew we wanted to invest everything we could and just pay it off as slow as possible. And so actually that dwindled down and paid off. But
it was even when we got to the point where there was like $100 left of loans, and we didn't want to pay it off quite yet because we're like, just let it go one more month and invest the money instead.
Yeah, I was exactly the same, and it was like the thing that had the longest history on my credit report too. So I was like, this is making my credit score really high because I've been paying this off for years. But yeah, when it got down to like $500 and my minimum payments were like 131 or something. I was like, man, I just want to pay this off and stop thinking about it. But,
Yeah,
but I kept it going until the very last payment. So, no, I definitely feel that. So you guys, were you always good financially? Was it, like obviously I don't think you stumbled upon like this whole FIRE movement, way back in 2010. But were you guys good with money, and, was it always something that interested you, or?
I think, well, I know I had a job since the junior year of high school. I've always sort of had to be in charge of my own finances. So I've been pretty decent with my money, and we started living together and paying our own finances when I was like 19. So we've been sort of, trying to keep our costs down since we were broke college students,
Right.
to live off.
Yeah, I sort of was. I was good with the math of like compound interest, but was never super good at keeping my expenses low. And especially I had a roommate in college. We put together an eBay business that made like six figures, and like blew all of it just because he was not a great influence in terms of spending. And so he'd come in with a new shiny Rolex and giant flat screen TV and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. Me too. And, but luckily got over that pretty quick. And then, yeah, it was, just sort of keeping, our expenses low at that college level. When we moved to Vegas, we got a little 400 square foot condo, and lived there our whole 8 years in Vegas, and just never really succumbed to lifestyle inflation.
That's awesome. So
we had that same flat screen TV that he bought in college all the way through.
Nice. That's cool. And you bought your condo in 2007, right? Which a Vegas condo in 2007 couldn't have been that great of an investment.
Yeah, that did not turn out well. Yeah, so actually that probably segues us pretty good into the next like sort of question probably most people have is like, all right, so you're teachers and you were making that much, so how did you actually retire? And the answer is mostly real estate. So we moved to Vegas, and Vegas peaked a little ahead of the rest of the country in summer of 2006. And so then prices started falling all the rest of 2006 and all of 2007. So by into 2007, prices had fallen for a year and a half, and I was like, oh wow, this is a great time to buy. And it was not. But we bought our condo, and prices continued to fall, and they fell for another year. And at the end of 2008, I was like, wow, they've been falling for a year and a half or 2.5 years now. This will be a great time to buy a rental. And so in 2008, we bought a rental property, and it seemed like a good deal because the price of the property was $120,000, and at the peak, it had sold just 2 years before for $360,000. So wow, like it sold for $360, and now it's $120. This is great. But then prices kept falling, and kept falling in 2009 and 2010. And that property actually bottomed out being worth around $80,000.
Oh, wow.
So we were underwater on it, but we were still making money every month, because the rents was higher than the mortgage payment, by a decent amount. And then, so prices kept falling. And so we bought another couple properties in 2010 and another one in 2011 and another few in 2012. And so we kind of just dollar cost averaged into properties.
Right.
As the prices kept falling, and we kept buying a few more and then prices bottomed out around early 2012, and we bought a few more then, and prices rose a little, and we bought a few more. And so we kind of ended up with a number of rental properties, and that we pretty much initially just funded by saving when we were both making around 40,000, but only spending 20,000. So we're grossing 80,000 plus all the extras that we mentioned, summer school and after school tutoring and everything. And living on under 20,000, we were just able to save, when prices are 100,000 or whatever, and we put down a 20,000 down payment, we can save that up in 4, 5, 6 months and then go on and get the next one and the next one. And then they started to do the fun thing where compound interest catches up and now rents are coming in and starts to snowball so you can purchase them even quicker.
Wow.
Yeah, we sort of fell in real estate.
That's amazing. That's so how many units are you up to now?
So right now we have 15 rental properties.
Wow. And those, are they mostly concentrated in Vegas, or do you have them all over the country?
About a third of them are in Vegas and the rest are kind of spread around. After Vegas, in 2013, the hedge funds came in, Blackstone and a whole bunch of other companies. That was right around the time Warren Buffett made a comment about if he could do it at scale, he would be just purchasing a bunch of single family properties. So a bunch of hedge funds came and started purchasing up rental properties and prices rose quite a bit. And so I started looking at other markets and investing in other areas.
Right. And which areas? Just curious.
We have stuff, either properties or notes in Michigan, Vermont, Ohio, North Carolina, and one other one can't think of off the top of my head.
That's all right. How different is it purchasing properties in towns that you may not be as familiar with?
It's very different, but it's something completely doable if you set up the right systems. If you know what you're doing. I have a post on the MMM forums. If you Google purchasing real estate you've never seen, that's the title of the thread. And so if you just use that exact phrase, it'll be the top Google hit, or, if it, for whatever reason, it'll be within the first 2 or 3 if it's not the top one.
Nice. I'll find it and put in the show notes. Definitely a link to it.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah. So it's called Purchasing Real Estate You've Never Seen. And it talks about how to basically build a team of people who will be able to facilitate that transaction. Essentially, I don't know what I'm doing in terms of, like, if I go into a property, I can't say that furnace is bad just by looking at it. I don't have that sort of expertise. So if I'm purchasing a property next door in Vegas, I would need to hire a home inspector to go through and check everything and give me the report and tell me these are the problems. And then I need to talk to a contractor and he'll say, okay, here's our estimate to fix it. And I talk to a couple different people, but essentially I need to hire experts to do that. So it doesn't really matter if I'm down the street or I'm across the country. If it's a property over in Atlanta, I can have a home inspector go and check it out and email me the report. I can have several contractors go out and take a look at it. And it doesn't really make a difference where I'm sitting when I'm, on the phone with them or getting their emails.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Definitely. How do you go about finding which markets you want to look into further?
I have a number of different criteria based on, essentially, I like to describe it as if you picture one of those like bad 90s movies where the criminal is like calls up the FBI to taunt them, and the FBI is like, trace that call, and it shows like a giant map of the United States, and it like zooms in on a state, and then it like zooms in on a like city, and then it like zooms in on a neighborhood block, and they're like, he's at the payphone on 24th and 52nd or whatever. Like, that's kind of what I do. Is I start with like a big geographic area and zoom in based on starting with broad factors like, how is the landlord tenant laws in this state? How is the what's the employment look like in this state? Are they adding jobs? Or, because you want your tenants to be employed, to be making good money. Is this a place that's kind of going downhill, or is this a place where that's improving, that's on the upswing? So I'll look at demographic reports and job growth and that sort of thing, median income, and then I'll look at what the sort of prices in the area are and get down to, okay, I really like this particular city. Now let me go down to the neighborhood level. Let me talk to different property managers in the area. Let me talk to other real estate investors and find out sort of what are the best areas within that area to invest in.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you're all self-taught, right? You guys just sort of trial and error, just took the plunge in 2007 and then just have been learning along the way. Is that the case?
Yeah. Lots of reading real estate books, lots of attending different real estate meetups and things like that. And I'd say it's a thing where there's so much information out there that starting with a couple solid books, to give you a basic overview and then seeing kind of where you want to go. Cause there's lots of different areas in real estate. You can, there's flips and there's buy and hold, and there's so many different ways to purchase, wholesale and auctions and, tax auctions and just probate. There's so many different things that it feels overwhelming at first. And so just starting with like the basics of like, here's a book on how to buy properties for rent. And there's a thread on the MMM forums that's just like in the real estate section of the forums, there's a sticky thread right at the top that's like recommended real estate books, that if anyone's listening and wants to know like where do I start, I have a list of books of like, here's what I would recommend you read first.
Nice, cool. Okay, I'll link to that as well in the show notes to the MMM forum. That's perfect. And you guys are mainly single family house buy and hold, is that right?
Yeah, we've flipped a couple properties that were bigger, and yeah, but all our rentals are single families.
All right, that's cool. Is there any standout book for that sort of strategy? Because it seems like a great strategy for people that are wanting financial independence, to build a bunch of assets that then just give you a bunch of monthly income, which would be great. So,
yeah, the number one book I recommend is called Building Wealth One House at a Time, and it's just very straightforward. It's like reading Jim Collins' book for stock market investing, but for real estate. Like
Nice.
It's very clear language. It's very like, here's exactly what you need to do. It's not overly complex. At some point, once you get those basics, you're going to want to move beyond to more advanced concepts. But that's just kind of the perfect beginner book in my mind.
Perfect. Nice. Thanks very much for that. That's great. Obviously, things are much different now than they were back in 2007. Are you still purchasing properties? Are you still finding some good opportunities in certain parts of the country? Or have you slowed down as far as acquisition goes and you're just maintaining the cash flow that's now coming in?
We've mostly stopped.
Since we retired.
Yeah, we retired, and so we also invested. Our portfolio was very real estate heavy, and so now with all our extra cash flow, I'm dumping a lot more into equities, index funds, and trying to diversify a little to basically build up a second via stock market investments.
Nice, cool. No, that's probably a great idea. But there's a good quote. I forget where I stumbled on it. You had said that real estate is like throwing lighter fluid on your fire plans, which is a nice little quote. So that's definitely what you attribute. Obviously, the rapid, going from zero net worth to then retired. That it would be hard to do that. I think with just equities alone, you would have to have a huge savings rate to accomplish that, but you guys just like killed it.
Yeah. So we did have a huge savings rate. I think it was around 75%.
But even so,
but even so, it probably would have taken another few years. It definitely sped up our time to retirement. There's actually I was on another podcast that hopefully I won't steal your readers over to this other podcast. Listeners, I'd say readers, but if they're interested in this topic, I've been on the Radical Personal Finance podcast with Joshua Sheets a couple times, and one of them was discussing just the idea of, should I use real estate to get to early retirement, or should I invest in stocks, and the kind of the pros and cons of each, and goes into some of the downsides of real estate and then some of the upsides in terms of early retirement, because it has some huge benefits for an early retiree in terms of sequence of returns risk and things like that. But we spent like an hour plus talking about that. And we obviously, you and I won't have time to go into that right now. So maybe you can add that in the show notes, since anyone who's interested in like, maybe I want to look into real estate for early retirement, I think they'd be interested in listening to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love Joshua's podcast. So I'm more than happy to link over to that. And yeah, that sounds exactly the next logical progression if people are interested to then really dive deep into it. And Yeah, you guys
Yeah,
are.
and they'll probably hear me repeat a few of the things I said here about like zooming in on an area because I use that sort of analogy. But they'll hear 2 minutes of repeat content and quite a bit of other stuff.
Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, no, that'll be in the show notes as well. So cool. All right. So you hit your number, and then you guys retired, and then you guys have been doing some really exciting stuff ever since you quit your job. So you guys left last year, and you started by hiking the El Camino de Santiago. Is that right?
Yeah, well, first of all, we didn't actually hit our numbers. We don't. It's hard to know how much we need when we're going to be traveling, and we've never really like lived on the road. So we and having a baby, and we don't know how much that's going to cost. So we had like made up numbers and decided that we were going to need to work so many years to hit those made up numbers, and then we retired a year early anyways because I was kind of overworking
Nice.
and I wanted to go ahead and do all those things. So
Nice. Yeah.
So there's that.
And how's it been? Have you felt like that was the right call, or do you wish you had stuck it out? Cool. That's good. Yeah, that's I think a lot of people stick around for a bit too long and put it off for too long when really I think they'd be more than fine if they just took the plunge, even if they don't feel ready for it. So that's great that you did, and it worked out great.
Yeah, and we always figure, you can always do side gigs. Like I write a little bit. I write romance novels.
Right, you just recently got published, right?
Yeah, my second book is coming out in January.
That's awesome! Congratulations. So did all that happen after you quit, or was that something you were working on prior to quitting?
Well, in order for us to retire a year early, Joe and I made a deal that I would start writing and see if I could get published, and then be able to go off early to know that we had that, and I did. So that was part of
awesome. That's a great strategy. So because I know at least I've only been jobless for the last 2.5 months, but it's easy to not do the things that you think you're going to do before you quit because you have all the time in the world. So it's easy to just put things off and wait another day to start something. But that's an excellent strategy to actually take the plunge a year early and force yourself to do some of these things that in all likelihood will earn money, but are actually challenging and you may put off if you leave it till after you're fully set.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So you're on your second book now, and that's great. So you're still enjoying it as much now that you're actually like it's sort of like a job.
Yeah, it can be hard to get started writing because with Annabelle, our baby, around and everything, you're like, I don't have time to write. I'm doing this thing, or I'm napping, or we're going out and seeing stuff. But then once I get into it, it's fun. Like I giggle to myself as I write because it's romance and it's ridiculous to write.
That's awesome.
And the next thing is like we don't need the money. It's for fun. And I think that's sort of the best part of making money in early retirement is you can do it if it sounds like fun, but otherwise you can just not do that.
Yeah.
If it's like, I don't feel like doing this and it's like, all right, then I just won't do it.
I know exactly. Yeah. I just got an email from somebody who wanted me to advertise on Mad Scientist or something. And he had laid out how many thousands of dollars I could be earning every month. Because I said, I'll arrange a call with him just to hear what his company's all about. But when I get back in January, but he's like, but look, you could, if you don't do it, if we don't talk now, then you're missing out on all these thousands of dollars, all these months that you're not talking to me. And I'm just thinking like,
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I do not need those thousands of dollars. And, I'm probably not going to be too interested anyway. So it's like, well, I'm not going to take a time out of my time here in Mexico just to chat on the phone, some sales pitch. So yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It's a completely different mindset.
I think that, that last word you said, mindset, is such the key because I'm sure there are people listening to this, maybe less than the average population, but people who just don't understand the concept of like, why would you turn it down? It's still money that you can earn with very little work. And the point is there's still a little bit of work and I don't need it. And that concept of enough is just such a big thing to realize, like, more money is not going to make me happier, but the extra amount of work will take away from the time that I have with my wife or kids or doing this thing that I actually really want to do. So it's more money, yes, but it still has a cost.
Yeah, oh, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And it's actually still something I struggle with. Like for instance, I'm currently redesigning Mad Fientist a bit, and with the redesign, I'm going to take away all the ads because I never liked them. It doesn't, like, I don't know what they are half the time. They could be advertising something that I don't believe in, and it just they make the site look stupid and terrible. So I'm planning on taking them away, but still just turning off this like income source. And it's not that much; it's a few $100 a month, but it's like, yeah, it's still a tough decision because, you know, our whole lives have been spent like building up to this moment and focusing on money so much that it is hard to just flick that switch. But it's definitely something I'm getting better at, and I think it takes practice to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll jump back into you guys and see what you've been up to since you both quit, because it's definitely been a lot of exciting stuff. So can you just talk about quitting and then what you've been up to since?
All right. So we retired in June of 2015. We did summer school, and then we had to like pack up everything, basically sell off everything, toss it to Goodwill,
donate it,
whatever, empty out our 400 square foot apartment and leave Vegas. You know, did all that.
So we got all our stuff down to just one backpack each, and then we have a box of like mementos,
like our wedding
album, and that sort of stuff in our parents' garage.
That's and if anyone out there hasn't done something like that, that's like the best way to never want to buy anything ever again. I don't know about you guys, but it's such a traumatic, stressful, awful experience trying to get down to like 2 boxes that you never want to accumulate anything again. Is that how it was for you guys?
It felt so good every time I like handed stuff to the people at Goodwill and just be like, I never have to look at that again. It's no longer on my plate. Like, it's over.
Yeah, just freeing to be like, I don't own things.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There were a couple of things that like getting rid of it was like a little sad at the moment, like our Christmas tree that we bought when we were
we had 19. A little fake 3-foot Christmas tree that we'd like put up every year and stuff.
Yeah, and that was like a kind of a bummer to finally get rid of that. But then once it's gone, you're like, hey, now I don't have that sitting under our bed forever,
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I just took pictures of everything that I was sort of like sentimental about, but there's no way I wanted to keep for the rest of my life. And that seemed to work out well, because then I could still look at it and think of it if I need to, but I don't have a big Christmas tree somewhere. So
Exactly. Yeah, we did the same thing. So then, we got rid of everything except for that one little tub and our 2 backpacks. And then we headed out to Spain. Basically, we started in southern France and we did the Camino, which is a 500-mile walk across the top of Spain.
Wow. How was that?
Yeah.
And Allie was in her second trimester of pregnancy, by the way, at this point.
Yeah.
Jeez, no way. That's crazy. So how did it go?
It was hard. Like, it's walking, and it's walking a really far way, but you're like, but I walk. Like, we're fairly active people. We're pretty young, and so we thought it wasn't going to be like that hard. And then we got there, and the first day you climb over like a mountain, you know, and you have to do that in order to get to like the one place where you can stop for the night. And it was so hard. Like, I just did not see it coming.
Did you get used to it, or was it just hard day after day and you didn't really get into a rhythm?
The first week in particular for me was really tough, just trying to get used to it, and the like waking up early and packing up your like little backpack of stuff and then walking to the next place, and then like having to unpack your stuff and like wash your clothes in a sink and hang them up to dry and like try to find some place to eat. It was a lot harder than I thought, but Joe was like super gung ho, and he was like, "No, this is great." And so I got with the program. I managed to pull it off. He was like, "If you really don't want to do it, you know, you don't have to." But
you finished it, and you're glad you did.
Yeah, I'm like, now every once in a while I'm like, hey, I did that. You know, when you get to the end, you get this like piece of paper that is written in the original Latin from the pilgrimage that people have been doing for the past 1,000 years, basically from the Catholic Church, saying that you did this. Yeah, and I have that, and
nice.
That's pretty cool.
Nice, and you won't be giving that away to Goodwill anytime soon.
No, that's an unbid.
That's
I
awesome.
think the most interesting part about it for me is your body adjusts after about a week, and it's no big deal physically. I did about 20 days in get some really bad shin splints that I just had to walk through. But other than that, like, your body does adjust and it's fine. But the hardest part sort of after that period turns out to be like the mental difficulty of the idea that I have 20 more days of getting up and walking for most of the day with my bag on my back, and then sort of, getting a meal and settling in and getting up and doing it again the next day and the next day. And I'm going to keep doing this when I could hop on a bus and be there in about 4 hours. And so it's, there's always those sort of cliche quotes about how it's about the journey, not the destination. But with this sort of thing, like, it has to be, because if it's about the destination, you would just hop on a bus and go there, and you'd be there in the final city of Santiago. And we have the money to take a bus ride. We have the ability. There's nothing stopping us from just hopping on, being there tonight.
Right.
And instead, it's going to take us 20 more days of walking. Like, why are we going through, why are we putting ourselves through this? And so it goes past the physical thing where it's not really physically challenging anymore, but it's mentally challenging. Is this like, am I just going to keep doing this for really no real purpose other than the challenge of it, other than the journey? And so that to me was kind of interesting about it.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. So you were definitely excited about doing it, and you're happy you've done it as well, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. And just having completed it, I've always been sort of lazy and self-indulgent, and I was, one of sort of my worries going into early retirement was like, well, am I going to sit around all day? Am I not going to get much done because I can? And so that to me was kind of a cool challenge to kick off our retirement, because it was like, I want to force myself to do something difficult so that I know I can.
Nice.
It sounds a little silly, but that was my thinking.
Oh, that's great. And ever since then, you've just been on the road as well. So can you talk a little bit about where else you've traveled since then?
Sure. We went to Portugal after that, and then we went to Germany. We went to Great Britain and stayed in London for a little bit. We went to Marrakesh, Morocco, spent about a month in Croatia, and then we went over to Istanbul and were there for 3 months.
Yeah, so that's where we had Annabelle. But we had been mostly to Western Europe before, on a backpacking trip we did one summer. One summer we didn't teach summer school, and we backpacked through Europe for about 2 months. And so we'd been to most of Western Europe, so we wanted to hit a lot more of Eastern Europe. So we saw Croatia and Turkey and that sort of thing.
And then post Annabelle, we went up and we did Prague, and we did Krakow and Athens.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. And how was it having Annabelle in Turkey? And why Turkey?
Oh, we knew we were going to be in Europe area because of the Camino. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to try to figure out if there was a location nearby that had good health care without being too expensive, and that we could stay for a few months, because a lot of places you can only stay for 1 month, or if you're in most of the European countries, you can only be in them 3 months altogether for all the countries.
The whole Schengen area.
Yeah. So that narrowed down our possible areas a lot, and then we just at some point hit on Istanbul as being a good idea, and we were able to email around and find a hospital with a doctor that spoke English, which was useful.
Nice.
So,
and did you sorry, go ahead.
Doctor was the only one who spoke English, so that made it a little difficult at times. When Allie started going into labor, and we texted, it was like 11:30 at night, and I texted the doctor like on WhatsApp and was like, hey, she's feeling these and, weird contraction things. And so the doctor was like, yeah, go over to the hospital and the nurse will check her out and will let me know if, what's going on. And so we go over there, and the nurse doesn't speak English or whatever. And, but she checks it out. And yeah, we have to kind of mime what we need. And she checks Allie out and calls the doctor and hands the phone over to Allie. And the doctor's like, yeah, you're going into labor. Like, they're going to admit you, and I'll be over there in a bit.
So I'd like ask a question, and then she'd have to like hand the phone over to the nurse, and the nurse, and so we were basically translating through our doctor on the phone. And
so we did that, and we got admitted, and we go up into like the little room they give us to wait until we need to go into the delivery room. And then some people come and are motioning for me to come, and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, all right. So I go with them, and they take me down. And of course, when you check into a hospital, you need to like fill out paperwork, sign in and everything. So they hand me a stack of about 20 or 30 pages of stuff, but it's all in Turkish, and I don't speak any Turkish, and they don't speak any English. And so they're just like pointing, and I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, I assume this is all normal. And so I'm just like signing and initialing, like I have no idea what it says. I'm just like signing away my firstborn and whatever, like, and yeah, so that was quite the experience trying to get all that done. And meanwhile, Allie's going into like a super fast labor. So I get up there 30 minutes later, and it's already like, well, it's time. Like we're going. And yeah, it was a fun experience.
All Joe's down there to me like how many centimeters tall I am. And I'm like, we
don't speak metric. We don't speak Turkish, and so they mime how tall, and we don't speak metric, and so it's like.
So I'm sure all of our paperwork there is just completely a mess.
That's crazy.
But it all worked out, Like people worry about when we first sort of mentioned, hey, we're going to be having a baby in Istanbul. Some friends and family and stuff. They're like, oh, a little worried, and our opinion is like people have babies all over the world all the time. This isn't like a new thing. So We're not too worried about it. It'll all work out.
Yeah. And I mean, my mom had gotten to Istanbul the day before. And so she was back at our apartment, had like been there for less than 24 hours. Joe texts her that I'm going into labor. So my mom has to like go out in the rain at midnight trying to find a taxi in a country where she speaks, like she couldn't even lock the door because she doesn't know how to do that.
Oh, wow.
She just like walks out with like a $20 US bill, and it's just like, here's the name of the hospital on her phone, and it's like, please get me there. And it all worked out fine.
Yeah, you get fun adventures like that when you're willing to go overseas and just try things.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great lesson. I think a lot of people, especially in the States, are just so scared of doing anything, let alone having a baby in Istanbul. So did you guys pay cash, or how did that work out?
Yeah, we used a credit card, but essentially cash.
Yeah.
And thing.
It was like $4,000 once everything.
Yeah, it was around $4,000 for basically the birth, the 2 days in the hospital, and then all the checkups before and after those checkups and everything. We calculated it seemed like it was going to cost, for us as teachers with our healthcare, it seemed like it was going to cost about $5,000 to have the baby in the States. Between our deductibles and 20% copay and all this stuff, it was going to cost us about $5,000 to have the baby in the States, or
with our health insurance.
Yeah, with good health insurance, or we could go overseas and pay the whole thing ourselves for $4,000. It was like, well, that's silly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I interviewed Mike and Lauren, and they had a baby down in Costa Rica, and I think it was pretty similar, around $4,000 for the whole thing, and they said it was just such a nice experience, and I think the baby has Costa Rican citizenship. And is that the same with Annabelle, or does she have Turkish citizenship, or how does that work?
No, so North and South America does that a lot, does the citizenship at birth. But
so Canada, U.S., Mexico, most of South America,
right.
But pretty much everywhere else in the world got rid of that.
I think the only other place actually is Cambodia.
Yeah.
Right now.
But yeah, nowhere else in Asia or Europe does that anymore. They used to, I think 10, 12 years ago, they sort of got rid of that citizenship by birth idea.
Right. Okay. Cool. So
she doesn't get anything from it. She just gets to say that her birthplace is Istanbul,
which is pretty cool. That's a really good story when she gets older. That's cool. So what's the plans from here on out? So you're in Cambodia now, and I know you guys are heading to Thailand next. Do you have any? Yeah,
we're going to Thailand. There's a paper lantern festival. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Tangled.
No, but I know the Lantern Festival that you're talking about.
It's good. Do you not watch Disney movies anymore just because you're an adult?
I don't. I'll have to take I'll take a look at it. I'll put it on my to-do list.
Well, I mean, it's not amazing if you don't watch Disney movies. That shouldn't be the one that you watch, but you should just watch them all because they're still really good. Anyway, so there's this paper lantern festival. Basically, they light up all these like lanterns made of paper, but they have these little candles in them, and the hot air like makes them float in the air, kind of fly up. And so they just launch like thousands of these, and it looks really pretty. And that happens. It's this big religious ceremony here in November. So we're going to Chiang Mai for the whole month of November, and we're going to see that. And then we're luckily we have parents who are supportive and want to come visit us, so they're coming. At Christmas, we're going to Bali, Indonesia, to hang out with them. And then after that, we don't really know. We sort of kind of plan, month by month and see what we want to do. We're thinking eventually we'll probably get an RV and tour around Canada and Mexico. But yeah, we're kind of staying out of the States for now, just because it's so much more expensive to live there with the healthcare. And then not being able to exclude any income. It would probably cost us around $10,000 more in taxes and health insurance to live in the States. So when you're only spending 20 or 30 grand, it's kind of for no discernible benefit to be like, now I'm just paying extra. Even if everything else, food and housing and everything else costs the same, we're suddenly spending 10 extra thousand for no real benefit. It's kind of hard to do for now, but we'll probably eventually bite the bullet and head back for a while.
So you're doing foreign earned income exclusion, I presume?
Yeah, just on all the extra side gig stuff, Allie's writing and stuff like that.
Nice. And then for insurance, you're just doing travel insurance?
Yeah, so we have an international healthcare plan that costs about $1,000 for the year for the three of us, and it's mostly for catastrophic stuff. We haven't actually used it, but it's kind of there as more of a feel-good safety net. But we just pay everything out of pocket. It's real cheap. But it would cost us so one of the downsides of real estate is we don't have awesome tax in early retirement the way a lot of early retirees do, who can just use, 0% dividends and capital gains when they're in the 15% bracket or less. Mm-hmm. Our real estate's all unearned income, taxed at a normal rate, and so we don't qualify for any Affordable Care Act subsidies or anything. Right. So it'll cost us about $6,000 for insurance in the States versus $1,000 for overseas, and then around $5,000 or $6,000 in extra taxes we'd have to pay. So
right. Yeah, no, it's the same situation I'm in. That's why I was just in the States for FinCon, but then I had to hurry up and get out because I needed to get the physical presence test and be out of the country for 330 days. So I feel your pain on that one, but
and we'd want to be traveling anyway. I think our ideal time would probably be traveling internationally 9 or 10 months a year and being back home 2 to 3 months. And instead, we have to limit it back to being in the States for only a month. So it's not a huge deal for us, but it is kind of a bummer when it's like, all right, go see Allie's family for 2 weeks, rush up, go see my family for 2 weeks. All right, we're out. Yeah. Like, come with us. So eventually we'll bite the bullet. We'll pay the extra money and go spend a lot more time, probably, touring around the US in an RV or something. But for now, we're enjoying. There's too many other places in the world we want to see now to want to just limit ourselves there.
Yeah. Have you guys got tired of traveling at all? I know it is a tiring thing to, always be somewhere else. And it sounds like you're, spending big chunks of time places, which definitely helps. But has it been different than you expected it to be?
At times, for the most part, it's been just awesome. Like walking around Prague was probably like one of the happiest months I've had in my life, mm-hmm. Just getting to see all the beautiful architecture and everything and just thinking like, I never want to stop traveling. This is amazing. And then we were in Kuala Lumpur last month, and our house setup, our Airbnb wasn't great. So cooking was kind of hard, and we weren't near any big supermarkets. So it's like trying to get the food that I want to cook is kind of hard, and everything just gets a little difficult, and it's really hot outside. And so after a few weeks of that, I was like, okay, I'm getting a little stir crazy. I need to get a place else where I can move around a little bit more, and I feel a little, it feels a little easier, but
yeah, no, that's
for
good.
the most part, Yeah, our travels have been really amazing.
Well, that's good to hear. And in early retirement in general, was it everything that you hoped it would be?
Oh yeah. Just not having to work. Like, we both loved our jobs. We both enjoy teaching, but not teaching is just way better. Not having to do anything is just amazing.
That's so good.
Yeah, I really liked teaching, and we actually talked about maybe going back. In fact, Allie just mentioned 2 or 3 days ago that she might want to teach again here. Maybe not, maybe next year, maybe the year after, but it's teaching just is such a fulfilling job. But also, we taught for 8 years, and to me, 8 years is long enough to do anything. Like, even if you love teaching, which we did, we also love travel, and we also love being home with our kid all day. And so there's all these different things that it's like, well, yeah, we really enjoyed that, but we also want to go try other things too.
Sure.
So, early retirement, or financial independence in general, just that ability to be like, yeah, now I want to focus my life on this aspect, is incredible.
That's awesome. Well, I usually end all my interviews with the question, like, if you had one piece of advice for somebody who wants to pursue financial independence, what would it be?
That's a good question. And I knew you were going to ask this because I've listened to your other podcast. And the funny thing is, like, every time at the end when you ask the person that, I always think of something I want to say. Like, I always think of this is what my response would be to that question. But like, every time it's different. Like, because it's been a month or whatever since I listened to your last one, and then I listen, and then I'm like, oh, I would say this, and then by a month later, my answer's like, oh, but this is a really good tip or whatever. And I'm sure some of your listeners are like, yeah, I bet there's other people who do that same thing because there's so many different good tips, and your podcast guests have had a bunch of really good tips. But the one that in my mind right now, is a quote by John Stuart Mill. And I'm not going to nail the quote exactly. I don't have it word for word, but so I'm roughly paraphrasing, but it's essentially, he said something like, I have learned to seek my happiness by limiting my desires rather than in attempting to fulfill them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so basically, he says, like, instead of trying to be happy by getting all this stuff, I want to be happy just like having what I have and limiting my desires. This is simplicity and that sort of thing. And for me, financial independence was really easy to get because we were happy just living in our fairly small place and eating at home and just being efficient with how we spent money. And so our high savings rate was just because we enjoyed simplicity, and we didn't have to cut our budget, and we didn't have to like deprive ourselves. And if you can kind of cultivate that mindset of like, I'm just going to limit my desires rather than try and satisfy myself with all this different stuff, I think that really helps you become financially independent because, one, you don't need to spend as much money while you're earning, and you can save a bunch. And then two, you don't need as much when you're retired.
So many people would always say things about like how we sacrifice so much to get to this point. We're constantly sacrificing, but there was no point in our lives in Las Vegas that we felt like it was a sacrifice to like live in a small apartment, to only have one car. We cultivated a concept of gratitude about everything. And once you're grateful for everything you have, to try to get more seems kind of silly, when you're grateful that you have this one car that I got when I was 16, just being so excited about that fact that I have this car. It's like we don't need to get a brand new car, or that we have this place to live, or we have these places that we can spend time together. We don't need all that other extra on top of it that costs money.
That's a huge point. And yeah, that's something I've been thinking a lot about over the last few weeks, just because I have a buddy back in Scotland, and he is like the complete opposite with money, but he's really interested in like what I've done, and the whole, he's the guy that designed my logo. So he's worked with me on Mad Fientist stuff and things like that. He's a really good designer and things like that. But it's just so hard to get across because every time he sees us, he thinks we're depriving ourselves and we're like just doing it just because we're cheap or we're frugal and we're just miserable because of it. And it's like I was trying to think of a good way to explain to him that it's like it's not that at all. It's that limiting ourselves actually makes us happier, and when we do experience something that we only do so often, it's so much more enjoyable than if we did it all the time.
Yeah. We both have high earners and high spenders in our families. And so, they see us and they're like, what are you doing? I need the space. I need the thing. I need the stuff. I need the expensive restaurants. And we just say we're just happy with our, with what we have and each other. And we just constantly are amazed at the world. So it seems silly to like spend all this money to try to make things better when we, can walk around together and just be like, oh my God, it's a beautiful evening. We're so lucky to get to walk around outside and have a sunset. Like we don't need to go spend money at a restaurant and a movie when you've got each other and that clouds,
Yeah.
Nice.
No, that's excellent. So Allie, that's your tip as well. You would agree with Joe on that one?
Oh yeah, definitely about being grateful for what you have and just understanding enough and just cultivating that in your life. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? Obviously, they can reach you on the forums, but you also have a blog, adventuringalong.com, that people can maybe get in touch through, or what's the best?
Yeah, sort of. People kept telling us like, oh, we want to follow along with your adventures and your travels. Like you should set up a blog. And so we finally reluctantly did. It doesn't really have much content, and I don't know when or if that will change, because blogging feels like something we should do, but then it's also one of those things. It's like you need to get motivated to write these posts, and there's all this other stuff that we're doing too. So, you can go check it out, adventuringalong.com, and we'll sign up for the mailing list if you're interested in following along. So if we ever update it, we'll send out an email saying, you can come check out stuff. But really, you can email us through there. That's probably, if you actually want to get in touch, emailing me is a good way. Or going on the MMM forums. I'm on there all the time. Feel free to reach out. I love chatting about financial independence and real estate, teaching, any of those sort of things. Definitely spend a lot of time talking about that online.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm excited to check out the Radical Personal Finance podcast as well with you. I don't tend to listen to any other interviews before I do an interview because I don't want it to influence my questions at all. But it sounds like definitely a great carry on from this, especially if you're interested in real estate for FI. So.
Definitely.
Cool, guys. Well, have a great time in Siem Reap. Such a fantastic place. And I really appreciate you taking a whole hour out of your exciting day to chat with me. It's been great. So I really appreciate it, and look forward to hopefully seeing you guys at Camp Mustache next year at least, and maybe before, hopefully somewhere in Southeast Asia or something.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for having us on.
Good talking to you, Brandon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Finance.